Welcome to Jurassic World.
Guests, welcome to Jurassic World Minute, where we visit Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. Jurassic World Hr now hiring. Available positions, Park Supervisor. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
On this episode we're discussing Minute 39 of Jurassic World. Before we get to that, heading over to the International Movie Cars database online. I'm going to try and give that website out. With two vehicles here in this minute. The Chevrolet C2500 pickup truck, maintenance truck, and the Terex RT450 crane that both we've seen previous minutes, but we'll discuss now. I've had family members in construction all my life, so of course whenever I see a Terex machine, we always call it a T-Rex.
My uncle owns a crane company, and I've always felt the exact same way.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
And it's even funnier is everybody at that company all calls them the T-Rex.
Yeah, yep. Because I know especially a lot of the earlier, not so much now, but they used to be mostly painted green. So not so much the darker jungle green we love, but the a lighter green. But
I think the one he has is green.
Oh, there you go. So we'll discuss more about the crane when we sort of get Owen rolling around under it here. The maintenance truck, probably one of the most sold vehicles in America, at least. There's a bit of a conversation going on here, whether it's a 97 model or whether it's earlier. Also, the conversation I know has happened in the fandom about this old beat up truck being here when everything else in Jurassic World is brand new. I'm glad it's here. Maintenance vehicles, construction vehicles are always old. Exactly
that, and I mean it gives it kind of a lived-in feel, because I mean anybody who's been around construction vehicles know how very, very quickly they become not new. Mm-hmm. I mean they could only be a year old, but they very quickly accumulate dirt, grime, scratches, dents, rust, everything. You know.
Yeah, and I do love here. There's a comment by someone on the truck. In the Lost World, we've seen a lot of vehicles in the worker village, and even JP3 were sort of 60s, 70s, early 80s vehicles, and now we're seeing sort of the 90s vehicles in Jurassic World. So there's always been that sort of precedent of older vehicles being used.
You got old.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, just going off last minute talking about the 66 AMG. Seems like the shot they wanted to use here is of it driving past that jungle river. That might be the only time we see it, unless it's parked up at the Raptor Squad compound later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add about them. We're going to talk about both vehicles here in minute 39. So Dave, we may as well get to it. What do you reckon?
Alright.
As when in minute 38 of Jurassic World, the Indominus Rex had escaped, and as Owen watched on, she made her way towards a maintenance truck, where the Paddock supervisor was hiding. As we open on minute 39, the Paddock supervisor is whimpering, sitting in front of the parked truck. He looks around past the bumper to see if he can see the animal, but only sees its tail. At the 14-second mark, the Indominus grabs the truck, lifting it into the air and throwing it upside down near where Owen's watching on from his hiding spot. At the 23-second mark, Owen watches through the smashed cab of the truck as the Paddock supervisor is sitting there in open space with the Indominus standing behind him, and she lunges down and grabs him in his jaws. Owen immediately rolls over onto his back and pulls a knife out of his sheath. He grabs the fuel line and cuts it, yellow liquid spilling all over his face and torso, trying to mask his scent. At the 35-second mark, he looks over towards the Indominus, only to see that she's coming his way. Owen lays flat on his back as the big animal gets down on all fours and lolls its head under the crane, smelling for him, blood dripping from its jaws. And this ends minute 39 of Jurassic World.
As we start on minute 39, Owen's watching the Irex move past his little hiding spot there. And again, I love the sound design here of those footfalls on the gravel. You can you get the impact plus the sound of the gravel being displaced as well.
Mm.
And that's when we get a shot of the Paddock supervisor sitting on the ground in front of that maintenance truck. And we can see the sort of Irex moving around behind the truck as it approaches his position.
Mm. We see him starting to kind of like have that pissing in his pants look while he grabs looks like he has a small crucifix around his neck.
Yeah.
He grabs and he pulls it up and starts kissing it. He's saying his prayers.
He knows. He knows he didn't get far enough from that damn door.
Nope.
But one thing I wanted to bring up here too is the different logos, that original or that round T-Rex logo on the door of the truck with the construction written under it, suggesting, like our theory from JP3, that there's multiple logos for different departments.
I think that Masrani had an in-house construction company called T-Mac or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
T-Mac Construction. The only shame is we have that same round T-Rex logo on the side of the crane here in a minute, but there's no construction written under it, so they're just putting that different logos on whatever they can. But as you said, the package supervisor here grabs his crucifix around his neck and slowly leans out around the bumper, doing his best Bugs Bunny, looking around to see where the animal is. And he's either crying here or trying to cry. He's definitely, as you said before, wetting his pants at least anyway. And I sort of wondered here why she goes for the guy hiding in front of the truck. We've seen from previous minutes that this was a full-on work site, work went all over the joint. As she escapes last minute and no one's running past, there are other workers running in all directions as well, wearing that bright fluoro vests and that. I can only imagine they're off running through the jungle, not stopping, not looking back, just running away for as far away as they can. But there's a cement truck over on the edge of the construction site as well, so I can only assume that there's people hiding in that as well, or under it.
I personally would have hightailed it in any direction I could have,
Yeah. Get as far away as you can.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if it's just because these two were in her enclosure and she was able to pick up their scent.
I always figured she went over or went after the guard first because he was out in the open, I mean, he's just the easiest target that she can find right away.
I wonder if there was any vengeance or vindictiveness. I think I got that right. Because if he's in that observation window all the time, I'd assume he was the one on the other side of the glass when she attacked the window, and whenever that happened. Kind
of memory sees him and it's like, you.
Yeah. No tranquilizer gun this time.
Unfortunately not.
We do see her tail sort of disappear around the back of the truck here, and I don't know if it's just the CGI or it seems to be sort of getting darker as it goes past the back of the truck, like the active camouflage, she's darkening up.
It could be like that. I mean, we do know that chameleons kind of camouflage based on their emotional state, so it could be kind of intentful, where it just happens for her, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. It's right at the edge of the back of the truck as she passes it. It's sort of, it's going to a darker grey area, almost like she's going into shadow. But of course, she's bigger than the truck. There's no way that truck's going to cast a shadow against her in the middle of the day. But the Paddock supervisor whimpers again and kisses his crucifix before we cut back to Owen's viewpoint, and that truck's picked up into the air and thrown aside like a toy. See, T-Rex, if you had these arms back in the original film, there'd be no going back for Tim and Lex. That car'd be gone. But the Paddock supervisor looks up, watching the truck fly through the air, and his mouth open, and sort of puts his hand up over his head, shielding himself as the truck comes crashing down. Owen turns to the side at the same time as the truck lands in front of him, assumably cutting off his view of the Paddock supervisor sitting there, but he can see through the broken window, and that supervisor knows he's completely exposed to the hunter above him. And I sort of wish we sort of get his POV looking up at the Irex coming down, just that classic Jaws coming at you sort of shot.
And he just slowly looks over at Owen and completely helpless and exposed.
Yeah.
And that's when we get Chomp.
Well, that's it, yeah. She drops her head down and grabs him around, or closes the jaws around his torso and waist, and lifts the worker up into the air. We don't see him die, and I don't think I heard any crunching sounds, but he's dead. We see when she's down looking for him, she's got blood on her jaws. And
bringing up the instinctual camouflage thing again, looking at her feet here, you can kind of see they tinge kind of like a bluish green, you know. They're not white, but they're not that dark. They're not that grayish we saw back looking at the tail against the gate either, you know.
I'm sure I've seen videos, and I know this might go back to Lost World too, where we have Sarah and Levine running at the Carnotauruses with flashlights to confuse them to save form. But in octopus and that sort of stuff, when they camouflage, if they're not certain of if they can't match their surroundings, they not freak out, but just sort of go into a random spate of different colours. Yeah. Because they can't match the colour they want to. They're sort of confused. I wonder if the same thing. She's not confused, but just she can't camouflage to blue sky, or she's trying to get to the gravel texture here, the gravel colour.
I was thinking more the jungle that's behind her.
Yeah, that too. But Owen's now in panic mode. I don't know if he was just looking on in awe or fear while the Paddock supervisor was being hunted, but now he sort of realises he's next in line. He sort of rolls over on his back and pulls out a knife on his sheath, which I didn't even remember he was carrying a knife, especially one that big on his hip there, but he reaches up, grabs a hose and cuts through it, and this is where the score intensifies as a yellow liquid begins to sort of pour out of the hose down onto his face, and he moves the hose around his torso, spreading the liquid as far as he can. I know it's supposed to just he cut the fuel lines, but that's not possible on this crane.
Yeah, because this isn't a mobile crane. It is a mobile crane, but it's not one that has a front cab. It's just got the operating cab.
Yeah, and the motor's at the back, so where he's laying near the front axle here, I can only assume it's a hydraulic line going forward to the front stabiliser legs, but again, as you might know, they're steel braided and not the best to cut through with a knife. And this is far runnier, not as viscous as what hydraulic fluid would be, even though it's a similar colour.
It looks like gasoline.
Yeah, gasoline and a diesel earth moving.
Oh, diesel fuel, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm usually used to diesel fuel being like bright pink.
Yeah, well, we have sort of Alpine version here where it doesn't freeze up as much, and it's sort of a green, a light greeny yellow colour. So I know the regular version here, so that yellow, because it is just like cooking oil that goes all over him here. A bit of vegetable oil, or olive oil, good for the skin. doesn't sting the eyes. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing out of this is the fact that later he walks straight into the control room without changing his shirt, and no one mentions what's that stink or anything. Yeah, but Owen turns his head and opens his eyes, trying to see where the animal is. No stinging the eyes or wiping the eyes or anything. Even he just took it all in the face. And we can see it behind that upturned maintenance truck as it sort of growls and starts walking over towards him. And that's when his eyes start to go wide and he realises it's coming his way. He remains on his back and looks straight up at the underbody of the crane, trying to be as still as he can. And that's when we cut to see the Irex approach the front of the crane in probably the most we've seen her yet in the film. We get a good look at that head, all the little sort of, not really pit marks, but just the way the skull, the skin's shrunken into the skull.
Yeah. They're called fenestrae.
Okay.
Scientifically.
I'm glad one of us knew.
Behind her, you can see a wheelbarrow laying on the side. You can see how quickly the workers got out of there.
Yeah.
He probably just dropped it and ran.
I'm sure there's still a hard hat spinning in the mid-air somewhere with a little dust trail. But she sort of lowers herself down to the ground and gets on all fours once again, sort of showing us sort of the Spinosaur having more danger because it's got those big front forelimbs, not like the puny little T-Rex arms. She just got the jaws that eat you. This thing's got the claws as well, like the Spino.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I mean, she's got really long arms, so she's able to get almost quadrupedal here. She gets down on all fours, and she does it a couple times throughout the movie.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what we see in the next film with the Indoraptor.
Yeah, it does.
Just being able to get down on all fours, and most of the time it's for this sort of, not creeping around, but searching. It's all the sort of slower stuff. It's not like halfway through running after the boys, she puts the front legs down and starts to gallop. But here on the side of the crane, we can clearly see that fuel tank sitting there. As the animal lowers its head close to the ground, smelling for Owen, and as I mentioned before, you can see that round Jurassic Park T-Rex logo on the door without the construction lettering under it. But as we cut back under the crane, Owen's trying to stay dead still, and that's when the jaws of the big animal emerge, and we can sort of hear that deep growling, gurgling sound as she's smelling for him.
Well, not only that, but we get a real good close-up here on the teeth, and see the blood dripping from the jaws, and even some broken teeth here. So
yeah, and
I don't know if she broke those on one of the workers, or if she broke that on a cow. It looks like it's been pretty smoothed out. I'm assuming she broke that a while ago.
Yeah, and we get more shots of the jaws later, but just how gnarly, again, this animal's been put together. There's none of that Velociraptor or Tyrannosaur uniform jawline or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really snaggly toothed.
Yeah. But as the minute ends, Owen's staring straight up at the bottom of that crane, wondering if he will be eaten next. We'll find out next minute. Of course he doesn't. That's Chris Pratt. Anything else on the Irex smelling for Owen before we get into novel comparisons?
No, I think we're good.
Alright. The Paddock supervisor said